The first principle of seduction is one that most people resist because it requires them to change their relationship with themselves. Stop chasing. The moment you become obsessed with getting someone's attention, affection, or approval, you surrender your position. Your mind becomes focused on the other person, and your behavior begins to revolve around their reactions. You wait for their message, you analyze their tone, you wonder why they pulled away, and without realizing it, you have given them control over your emotional state. Seduction begins somewhere very different. It begins with self-possession. Think about the people who naturally attract attention. They are not necessarily the most beautiful, intelligent, or successful people in the room. Often what distinguishes them is that they seem comfortable within themselves. They are not desperately trying to prove their worth. They have an inner direction. They can enjoy someone's presence without needing that person to complete them. This creates a psychological paradox. The less desperately you seek someone's approval, the more room there is for genuine attraction to develop. But this does not mean becoming cold, distant, or pretending not to care. That is another form of insecurity. Real confidence is not the performance of indifference. It is the ability to care without becoming dependent. You can desire someone while remaining emotionally grounded. You can show interest without abandoning your own standards. You can pursue connection without turning pursuit into desperation. People are highly sensitive to emotional neediness because it creates pressure. When someone feels that your happiness depends on their response, they no longer feel that they are simply being invited into your world. They feel responsible for your emotional state. And responsibility rarely creates desire. This is why your own life matters so much. Have ambitions that exist independently of romance. Develop interests that absorb your attention. Build friendships, skills, physical discipline, intellectual curiosity, and a sense of purpose. The person who has somewhere to go, something to learn, and something meaningful to build carries a different psychological presence. Their attention becomes valuable because it is not available to everyone at every moment. And here is where many people misunderstand mystery. Mystery is not about hiding information or playing manipulative games. It is about allowing another person to discover you gradually. If you reveal everything immediately, there is little left for curiosity to explore. But when your life has genuine depth, you naturally possess layers that cannot be understood in one conversation. Your task, then, is not to manufacture scarcity. It is to become substantial enough that you do not need to manufacture anything. When you stop chasing, you also begin to observe. Instead of asking, how can I make this person like me? You start asking, who is this person? Do our values align? Do they reciprocate my interests? Do I genuinely admire them? That shift is profound. You move from seeking validation to exercising judgment. And that is perhaps the deepest form of attraction, not needing to be chosen by everyone because you have learned to choose carefully yourself. So don't chase attention. Build a life that deserves attention. Don't beg for desire. Develop the confidence to walk away from what does not reciprocate. Become so grounded in yourself that attraction becomes an invitation, never a negotiation. Once you understand the importance of not chasing, the next principle becomes much more subtle. Learn how to create emotional tension without manipulating the other person. Attraction rarely grows in an atmosphere where everything is predictable, immediate, and completely exposed. The human mind is drawn toward what it does not fully understand. Curiosity creates movement, anticipation creates emotional energy. And when used ethically, these qualities can make an authentic connection far more compelling. Think about how people behave when they encounter something genuinely interesting. They do not want the entire story explained to them immediately. They want to explore it. They notice details. They ask questions. They return to it in their minds. The same psychological principle can exist in human connection, but it should come from authenticity rather than calculated games. You do not need to answer every question about yourself in the first conversation. You do not need to constantly explain your feelings, your history, your plans, or your intentions. Allow another person to discover you gradually. Let conversations breathe. Sometimes a thoughtful pause communicates more than another paragraph of explanation. But there is an important distinction here. Mystery is not deception. If you deliberately disappear to make someone anxious, manufacture jealousy to provoke insecurity, or withhold affection simply to gain power, you are not creating healthy attraction. You are creating emotional instability. That may produce a reaction, but reaction is not the same thing as genuine desire. Real emotional tension comes from contrast. Be warm, but do not become overwhelming. Show interest but maintain your own rhythm. Be willing to reveal something personal but leave room for further discovery. Listen carefully, then allow silence to exist. Give attention because you genuinely want to, not because you are trying to purchase someone's affection. This creates something powerful, anticipation without pressure. One of the most attractive qualities a person can develop is the ability to remain emotionally present without becoming emotionally invasive. Many people destroy attraction through excess. They message constantly. They demand immediate responses. They explain themselves repeatedly. They try to remove every uncertainty because uncertainty makes them uncomfortable. But uncertainty is not always the enemy. Sometimes uncertainty gives two people space to discover what they actually feel. Consider the difference between saying, "I need you to tell me exactly how you feel about me right now," and simply enjoying a meaningful interaction while allowing the connection to develop naturally. The first creates pressure. The second creates space. And psychological space is essential because desire cannot be forced into existence. You should also learn the art of conversation. Instead of trying to impress someone with endless stories about yourself, become genuinely curious about their inner world. Ask questions that reveal values, ambitions, fears, experiences, and contradictions. People remember those who make them feel understood. At the same time, retain your own individuality. Do not mirror every opinion simply to create compatibility. Disagreement, when expressed respectfully, can create intellectual tension. A person who has a mind of their own is far more interesting than someone who simply agrees with everything. The deeper lesson is that seduction is not about controlling another person's emotions. It is about creating the conditions in which curiosity, admiration, and connection can develop freely. Do not manufacture mystery. Become deep enough that there is naturally more of you to discover. And once you have learned to stop chasing and to create curiosity without manipulation, you arrive at the deepest principle of attraction. Make the other person feel genuinely seen while never taking away their freedom to choose. This sounds simple, but very few people practice it. Most conversations are not really conversations. They are performances. People are waiting for their turn to speak, thinking about how they appear, wondering whether they are being impressive enough. They are not actually observing the person in front of them. Yet there is something psychologically powerful about being truly noticed. When someone feels that you understand something beneath their surface, you create a connection that ordinary compliments cannot produce. Instead of saying, "You're amazing," notice something specific. Perhaps they become unusually passionate when discussing an idea. Perhaps they have a quiet discipline that most people overlook. Perhaps they remain composed under pressure. Recognition becomes meaningful when it is precise. The reason this works is not because you are using some secret psychological trick. It works because human beings have a deep desire to be understood. We spend much of our lives being reduced to labels: successful, attractive, difficult, confident, shy. When someone looks beyond those labels and notices the complexity underneath, we naturally become more interested in that person. But there is a danger here. If you make someone feel understood while secretly trying to control them, eventually the manipulation reveals itself. Authenticity is essential. You cannot manufacture genuine attention for very long. So listen, not strategically, not merely waiting for an opportunity to impress them. Listen because you are genuinely curious about who they are. Notice their words, but also notice what they avoid saying. Notice what makes their energy change. Notice the subjects that bring them alive. Notice the values behind their decisions. These observations give you something much more valuable than clever lines. They give you an understanding of the person. And then there is another principle that separates healthy attraction from manipulation: freedom. You should never need to trap someone emotionally in order to keep them interested. You should not create fear of abandonment, manufacture jealousy, or make someone feel guilty for having boundaries. These tactics may create attachment, but attachment created through fear is not the same as desire created through choice. The strongest connection is one where both people remain free. You express your interest clearly. You give the other person space to respond. If they reciprocate, you move closer. If they do not, you accept reality without humiliating yourself or attempting to force an outcome. This is where self-respect and attraction meet. You are essentially saying, "I value you, but I also value myself. I want you, but I do not need to possess you." That attitude changes the entire dynamic. It allows you to give compliments without begging for approval, affection without demanding repayment, and attention without expecting ownership. You become someone who offers an experience rather than someone who imposes a demand. And paradoxically, that freedom often makes connections stronger. When people know they can walk away, choosing to stay has meaning. When affection is voluntary, it becomes more valuable. When interest is mutual rather than extracted, attraction can develop into something deeper. So the final lesson is not about making someone desire you through psychological tricks. It is about becoming the kind of person who can create genuine connection while respecting another person's autonomy. See people deeply, speak honestly, give them room to choose. The most powerful attraction is not possession, it is the freedom to choose each other.